In 1946, a parked car sat quietly on a secluded dirt road outside a small American town. A man walked up to the window, shone a flashlight inside, and pulled a gun. Over the next 10 weeks, that man would attack 8 people, killing 5 of them, before disappearing entirely. The violence began on February 22nd. 24-year-old Jimmy Hollis and 19-year-old Mary Jean Larry were parked on a local lover's lane when a flashlight beam pierced the dark. The attacker ordered them out at gunpoint, violently fracturing Hollis's skull with the weapon before assaulting Larry. Both victims survived, and both provided police with the exact same disturbing detail. They never actually saw the attacker's face. His head was completely covered by a rough burlap sack, with 2 jagged holes cut out for the eyes. Investigators took their statements and logged the incident as a horrific, but isolated, local crime. They had no idea it was the opening strike of a serial killer. Nearly a month later, on March 24th, Richard Griffin and Pollyann Moore were found dead in Griffin's car, parked along another secluded road. There were no survivors this time to describe the shooter. Inside the car, investigators found Griffin's pockets turned completely inside out. It suggested a robbery, yet nothing of value had been taken from the victims. Then came April 14th. 16-year-old Paul Martin and 15-year-old Betty Jo Booker were driving home late from a high school dance. Their bodies were discovered the next morning, abandoned in separate locations along a country road. This map illustrates the geographic spread of the attacks, but the real connection was found in the evidence locker. Ballistics testing confirmed the bullets collected from these separate locations all came from exactly the same .32 caliber pistol. A single man was hunting the residents of Texarkana. The realization triggered immediate panic across a city of 30,000 people. Hardware stores sold completely out of firearms and ammunition in a matter of days. Families stopped going out after sundown, and doors that had been left open for decades were suddenly bolted shut every evening. Even amid the heavy atmosphere of fear, local law enforcement felt they understood the rules of the hunt. The killer strictly targeted young couples sitting outside in parked cars late at night. The police believed they knew exactly where to look to stop him. On May 3rd, the killer changed his methods entirely. Virgil and Katie Starks were an older couple, sitting safely inside their own living room in an isolated farmhouse miles away from any lover's lane. A figure approached the property. Without warning, 2 bullets shattered the living room window, striking Virgil in the back of the head. As Katie stood up from her chair, she was shot twice directly in the face. Despite severe injuries, including a shattered jaw, Katie Starks managed to stay conscious. She fled out the front door and ran barefoot through the dark to a neighboring property to get help. She survived, but this brazen assault dismantled the police's entire profile. The Phantom was no longer restricting himself to secluded cars. He was willing to walk up to an illuminated home and fire right through the glass. Absolutely anyone in the county could be next. The state intervened. The Texas Department of Public Safety dispatched Captain Manuel Lone Wolf Gonzalez, the seasoned Texas Ranger, to set up a massive joint task force straight out of City Hall. A sprawling dragnet fell over the region. Investigators pulled in nearly 400 people for questioning, while tips flooded the police switchboards from all across the country. The entire city braced for a sixth strike. The police waited. The residents waited. But after the May 3rd farmhouse shooting, the attacks simply stopped. The investigation finally found traction through an Arkansas officer named Max Tackett. While reviewing the timeline, Tackett noticed a highly specific operational pattern. A car had been reported stolen and later abandoned in close proximity to nearly every single murder site. That specific trail of vehicle thefts pointed detectives toward a man named U.L. Swinney, a local career criminal with a lengthy rap sheet. When investigators brought him in, Swinney offered a strange, unprompted greeting. "You want me for more than stealing cars." Swinney fit the profile perfectly. He had the criminal background, his location matched the timeline, and the circumstantial evidence closely aligned with the killer's methods. The task force was incredibly close to officially closing the case. They hit a massive legal wall. Swinney's wife allegedly confessed to investigators that she believed her husband committed the murders. But under the legal framework of the 1940s, a wife could not be compelled to testify against her spouse. Without her on the stand, prosecutors lacked the hard evidence to bring a murder trial. The state successfully convicted Swinney on the car theft charges, securing a long prison sentence. He was locked away, but he was never charged with a single murder. Today, the case remains technically open across 3 different law enforcement agencies. Over 8 decades, the physical files and evidence gathered by the Texas Rangers have slowly degraded, leaving very little to pursue. The specifics of these crimes, the burlap sack mask and the silent stalking of young couples, became the basis for the 1976 film The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Decades before Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees popularized the image of the masked, wordless killer on screen, the Phantom had already established that archetype in the American consciousness. The person who wore that mask either died without ever being identified or spent the rest of his life as a free man. Nearly 80 years later, the true identity of the Phantom Killer remains an unsolved mystery. Let me know down in the comments if you think U.L. Swinney was the man behind the murders.